Hey everybody, it's Marty, the JavaScript party, and my buddy Rhett back there. I will warn you, she's being a little sassy this morning. So it is February 1st, first day of February, the shortest month of the year. Everything is beautiful here where I'm at. It's like, I think a high of 65 degrees Fahrenheit today. I do not know what that is in Celsius. Based on my analytics, I would say over 90% of the people that ever watch this video will be thinking in terms of Celsius. And it doesn't seem like it'd be very hard to remember how to do that. I believe it's like 2.5 degrees per degree, but then ours starts at 32 and yours starts at 0. So in if you adjust for the 0, the 32 shift, then I guess we'll be 33 degrees and then 2.5. So is that like 12 degrees? Let's give it a shot. Fahrenheit. That is crazy that I can't remember top of my head how to spell Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit to Celsius. That might be a good one. Okay, so temperature of 32 degrees, but it's 65. So it's going to be, I think I said 12. It's going to be 18 degrees, 18 and a third degrees. So we don't usually think in fractions, but I think where Celsius is like 2.5 times bigger, I guess fractions actually matter. So yeah, it's 18.3 degrees here, which I don't know if everywhere is the same, but 60, that is a beautiful, beautiful day here. And it's not raining and it's a bit wet outside because it rained all day yesterday, but that is that. So, but it is February 1st. So that means that I worked on this all of January, and this is what I have to show for it. So that's not great. I think if I was working in a professional job and they've been paying me for a whole month, and this is what I had to show for it, it might be. I may not be long for that job anymore. So yeah. So whatever. So the kind of the way I'm showing you how code happens. I'm not showing you how you should code at work. But I do think that like having fun coding on something you enjoy for at least like a half hour a day, even if it's on just on your free time, is like going to sort of associate software development with enjoyment. Now, Rhett, what are you up to here? What are you trying to do? And I could tell you that like Rhett does do this kind of thing a lot, but in a 24-hour day, she may kind of make this sort of noise maybe for a grand total of maybe an hour. So, and then if I do a half hour video, she does this stuff a lot of times. Well, you guys will see. Sometimes she just gets super quiet and she just does, internalizes everything. But yeah, this is. I think she's going to be pretty feisty today. Yeah, yeah, okay, buddy. She loves to say buddy. My wife calls the dogs buddy a lot. But anyhow, now she's yelling at our dog Snoopy for barking. And it sounds an awful lot like my voice, so maybe I yell at Snoopy a lot for barking. But anyways, so here we are. We are in a very, I would say, not fun part of this application. You could see that we have interfaces, and we've defined sort of these sort of three interfaces, and that is, I think, probably most applications will have like some sort of like this sort of emulates the architecture of the application. So, and it is starting to play out that way. Now, one of the things I did yesterday, which I know is a mistake, is in the services, or no, in these interfaces, I made this 3 camera a required field, which is a mistake. And the reason it's a mistake is because I want to export SD cameras, and you can't export this. All of these are just basic JSON or numbers, primitives, or a JSON object. But this is a rich. It could be like, can't remember what the word was for it. Serialized. It could be serialized, but it doesn't make sense to do that. To serialize some dynamic object that you don't control. So I'm going to add a question mark, and that makes this optional. And I'm going to add a little component. Do not require 3 objects. For future due to future import export. And then yesterday, after our video, I was walking my dogs. Yeah, it was after. I was walking my dogs, and I realized something. And the thing I realized is that I've been like trying to figure out, okay, how do I get to where I have forms, and how do I get to where I have upload and download, and like what is the way? But there is a middle. There is a middle ground, and the middle ground for both is a text box, a big or a text area, a big text area where you can physically manipulate these values. And then when you physically manipulate those values, you can save them, and then it updates on the screen. And not only that, but I could probably actually generate the little object, whatever the object is inside of. So like you have a text box, and maybe above it the actual item. And that there's so many benefits to doing that, because it'll make end-to-end testing a lot easier, because then in the end-to-end test I can bring up the editor, I can make whatever changes. I'm hoping, this is how I imagine in my head, it could be wrong, but I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that. And then and when I do that, I'll be able to make changes in there, and then that'll look really cool on the Cypress tests. And then like that's easy enough to turn into a download, and then that's easy enough to turn into an upload, and maybe even that might be where the download and upload happens. And that could be really cool, because I could have little buttons for like downloading and uploading a whole scene, or for downloading and uploading a specific mesh, and things like that. And I mean, I'm sure we'll run into problems, especially with like gigantic meshes that are like complex meshes. But anyways, I think that is probably going to be, that will be on the horizon before creating actual legitimate upload and download. And not only that, but like we'll be able to control copy everything out of that, do work on it, and then control paste it back in, or keep that copy for later use. So then that problem that I had back in the old one, which, gosh, I wish I'd have thought of that before, back on that old one, like I could have just gone into the edit field and got my little ellipses and 3D text things that were so cool, and copied them and kept them in a file, and then paste it back into the text. I don't know why I didn't think about that. I think that's something that was very, very, very common in like 2001, 2002, 2003. Sort of a view of something in like a text area. But that is not the way things work today. And like, I feel like I missed something in, I don't know. I think I was learning CSS and stuff when I could have possibly been listening, really getting deep into like tokenizers and parsers and things like that. And I would like to circle around and get a much stronger understanding of like just the whole tokenization and parsing and all those sorts of fancy words where you take a bunch of text and turn it into code. So that is cool. I was really happy to think of that. So anyways, so in the scene, I believe, is where I did, nope. Oh, it was in the camera. And that's what I just did. Okay, so the other one was in the renderer. And this is also another thing. Like, I feel like the fact that I'm just going to get rid of this to make it more consistent with everything else in this file. And then I'm going to take this moment to go through and just make sure that I have been consistent. So here I used commas, and I only used 2 of them. Now this is a perfect example of something that, like, I'm just blind to. I just don't get, I don't even see it. So, but it will drive other people insane if you have like inconsistent, like some files you have semicolons. Like to me, it could be this, that, and this. And like I literally, well, it looks like it's complaining. I literally won't even, like my brain just immediately filters out all of these things as noise. But I am highly aware that there are other human beings that does not filter out to noise for them, and that becomes like literally crippling for them to see things like that in the code. It just totally cripples them. So I don't want to be crippling people. I don't want to be the crippler. So I am going to try to keep that kind of stuff as consistent as possible, to be sensitive to my fellow coders, because you know it's probably, while that's not the most important thing, it is extraordinarily important. All right, so now it looks like the next step is to generate a scene. So our problem, the problem at the top of the list right now is that we aren't rendering anything into this box, which is not cool. All right, we want to be cool. All people, you should always want to be cool. And I want to be cool. And what I want is basically one of these sitting in there. And what I have instead is a big white box with a canvas inside of it that is the exact same size. And that is cool. Like, if it's cool to me, and if you're a nerd like me, if you're or a geek, I think geek's a better word, because a nerd just implies that you have bad social skills, but a geek implies that you have some sort of special skill that not everybody else has. And so I think geek recognizes geek. I think there used to, a little while, like maybe 2 years ago, everybody was saying talent recognizes talent. Well, geek recognizes geek. And if you think it's really neat that there's a canvas in there that is the exact same size as the div around it, but you can't see the canvas, if you think that's cool, you geek. Welcome to the geek club. If you don't think that's very cool, then there's nothing wrong. It's just, there might even be, that might actually be a sign that you're just a normal human being that is probably likely to be very happy in this life. So anyway, and that size of that canvas is handled here. But what I don't have is any way of getting, in order to be able to generate a canvas that has anything in it, I need to be able to get a camera, and I need to be able to get a scene. And I do have a scene, right? Once I create this, once I do this get base st renderer, I have a scene. It comes with a scene that I could use, but I just don't have a camera yet. And I think the fact that, like, I don't know if how much coding whoever's watching this has done, but like if you're working on something that's fairly complicated, you can move forward without really having the depth of understanding that I have of this stuff. You really can, and you can do a lot of cool stuff, and you can get a lot of you can bring a lot of joy and delight to other people, or get a nice paycheck or whatever it is you're trying to do. But um, it's really you probably what you can do, the scale of what you can do gets a lot bigger the deeper your understanding is. And the fact that I can't, and you can't always understand everything like that. Like sometimes things are just so complicated and convoluted that you can't gain that sort of understanding. So it's important. So it's a good feeling to me that I can just be like, oh, okay, over in this, that is there, and over in that, and then when I go there, it's like what I thought it was. And to me, that's a good sign. That's a sign that this architecture is pretty solid. If it before what was happening, like in my last effort, particularly when I was working in animations, I would have no clue. I would be like, oh, it's like this, that, and this, and that, and then I would go over there, and it wasn't like what I had sort of put together in my head. And that is like, while it's not a fatal issue, it is an issue. It is a sort of a sign that things aren't as they should be. But anyways, so I have the ability to get a camera from this base renderer. Yes, these get base render camera ID, and then inside of my scene, I get a camera by ID, and then ST camera, and when I do that, my I get my base camera. This camera does actually have a reference to a ThreeJS camera, right? It actually generates a 3 camera. So I have a camera, but I don't have a scene. So I need to do this exact same thing that I did for camera and for renderer, but I need to do it for scene. And if I do that, then if I go through those same steps again, I will, at the end of that little mission, I will have a scene. And we've already gone down these steps a couple times before. We've never had like a straight shot. There's always been issues that we kind of like, oh no, that ID should be over here. We should render these things here. Let me give Rhett a second. Yeah? What? Yeah? Not quite. Rhett is ready for this video to be over. But, so there's a camera. I mean, so we've gone through those steps, and every time we've gone through the steps, like when we went through that step initially, we did the render, and there was a lot of like things that I ended up changing. And then I went through the same steps for the camera, and then it was like, this would be better, and it would be better if we have dictionaries in multiple places and stuff like that. And then it was like, okay, yeah, well, to keep render consistent, we need to make changes in there. So it is possible that when we do this for the scene, that whole same thing will happen again, where we figure out some good stuff that would be great in the scene, but then it's like, oh, well, shoot, okay, we need to go back and fix that for camera and renderer again. Or it could all just be clean. It could be like, oh man, exactly the way I did that was exactly the way I want it. Now, it's a really good sign if the latter happens, right? If we go through all the steps and then there's no regression, no nothing, that's like a gold star. We can't let the desire for getting the gold star prevent us from making things better, though. If something presents, we have to have the discipline to go back and, well, the discipline to actually take the risk and make it better and try to make it better, with the strong possibility that we'll go through, make all those changes, do a regression through everything else, fix everything, and then realize, oh crap, this isn't better, right? That's just part of trying to build really, really good software. Which, I mean, I'll freely admit, like, most organizations don't want really, really good software. They want software that works. They want their problems to be solved, not really, really good software. This is just extreme craftsmanship. This is not something that you do. Like, if you were a carpenter and you were building stairs, you might, at your house, on your time, with your materials, you might want to build like the neatest, coolest stair ever. But when someone hires you to come build some stairs, like they have a problem. They just want to be able to get from the bottom, from one floor to the next floor. They do not want the neatest, coolest stairs that ever existed in their house. Right now, this is me working in my house trying to build the neatest, coolest stairs that ever existed. And they may end up, it might end up like once we have it all built out and we just go back and we're like, oh my God, that's just a pile of junk. That is very, very possible. And your ability to really become a great developer and build really, really great stuff quickly and efficiently, like you will be better at that because maybe when you have built something on your own time and and you went down certain paths and it was just a pile of junk, that is something that you can avoid when you're getting paid when it truly matters. But like this right now, this is a hobby. What I'm doing is what you would call a hobby. I'm not trying to earn money. I'm not trying to get followers. I'm not trying to do anything like that. I'm just trying to have fun, positive experiences coding, writing cool code. That's it. And yes, my definition of cool code is probably different than other people's. But anyways, I think we should close everything but the camera service. I think we have way too many things open right now. So I'm just going to say camera open. Camera service just got lucky. It's the one that got to stay open because I just happened to be on it at the time. And it's probably a good reference for a lot of things. So we do know two things. I feel very confident that I'm going to create two of these things now. And one of them is going to be ST scene. And the other one's going to be 3 scene. And so basically I have this to copy. So I can just copy this. Just do a copy. I can put a comma here. And we're going to call this SST scene. And this S3 camera scene. Now, all of that, like literally the very first time we ever did that, took a lot more time and they had to be done individually. And now we kind of know what we're doing. We have sort of an idea of what we want. We have a pretty good idea of what we want. And we're getting pretty good at it. And, that's good. And I would imagine when we end up doing this for the next thing, which is probably mesh or something else, we will by the time we get done with all the other things, which look like they're going to be geometry and material, once we're done with all of these things that are in our interfaces, so we got camera, geometry, material, mesh, and renderer and scene. Once all of these are all done, we'll probably be pretty damn good at it and we won't need to do it anymore. I guess the question is, do we want a viz as well? And I think we probably will want to do the whole thing for viz, but maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, so now we have two new scripts to run. So we'll run that and just double check that everything, yeah, that one's, no, that's right, that everything looks good. So we'll go to this other, this other thing here, and we'll be npm run sst scene. One thing that I always, and it's weird that this takes so long, but one thing that like I constantly have to do. Well, okay, let's focus service. Okay, so yeah, inside of our services st, now we have a scene. Okay, and now I need to do the same thing with s3 scene, and what we're expecting this. So one thing that I constantly have to sort of remind myself about is it's impossible. Like, I'm a curious human being, so I'm always fascinated by looking at the analytics, and I'm constantly like wanting to adjust my behavior and my videos to appease the analytics, to make like, so, oh, it's just like, oh, more people watched longer, more people did this, more people did that, let me change. But that is not the primary goal of this. First of all, like, it doesn't mean anything, I don't think, because, and the problem is like, I'll just be honest, and I'm sure this doesn't help. I don't know. Well, this helps, but it doesn't help me. But like, I can't watch YouTube. I just can't. I try to watch YouTube, but the way they do the commercials and the way they do ads and stuff is like, makes it unwatchable. Like like I watch my videos all the time, and Red is a real pain. I'm not going to deny that. I don't think she is a value add. She might be, but she doesn't even come close to it, the annoyance that YouTube creates with the way they time their ads, the way they like, it's like they did a huge study on how to make themselves unwatchable. And I'm assuming that 90% of my views come from India because it's not unwatchable in India. I'm assuming that the people in India get a better product than we get here, because to be honest with you, the product here it's just awful. It's just absolutely the worst. So you know, so like, it doesn't mean a darn thing if suddenly I start seeing a spike in people watching my stuff and all that, because that probably to me just means that YouTube didn't have ads or something, for people. And so the people, regular Americans that started trying to look at, and other people wherever they do this awful, awful stuff that they do with destroying content with their ads and stuff, like that they've just backed off, and then that's probably why my stuff's getting watched. Because I will tell you that all my stuff gets watched more when it goes up, when watches go up, and all my stuff, not just the latest stuff, and not just some stuff, like all the content goes up. It's so like me adapting my videos to try to make other people, to try to appease the analytics, is silly. But anyways, boom. So I'm going to create my 3. I'm expecting a new folder to show up in here. And then, so we have our scene. So then I think the new work starts at the renderer. No? Yeah, at the renderer level. Right? So we'll come in here. I love you too, Rat. And okay, so this is on the 3 side. So I think it starts on the ST renderer service. And I think that makes total sense. And this, we want to have. Okay, so we have our 3 render. So we want this, so nothing changes in here actually. What we want is this ST scene. Right, I just created scenes, right? That's what I just did? Yeah. What we want is this ST scene. Const ST scene. Oh. So instead of, I want to do it more like this camera, where I say camera, ST camera service, get camera by ID, and then okay, this is where I get my camera. So I want to have like 2 lines like that, but for scene. So 2 lines for scene. Instead of creating a scene like this, I want to get my scene from this ST camera, and then I want to get my actual scene from this one by ID. So this basically is going to get a base scene for me. Get base scene ID. And then get get base camera ID. So that doesn't make sense, right? That should be camera, get base camera, not camera ID. So let's go to this definition. Let's fix that real quick. I think, and this is the kind of thing we might just iterate back and forth, and I might be like, no, that should be ID. Because it's getting a base camera, not, well, it is actually getting an ID, but it's generating, this should be like create base camera. And then that should break stuff. And this should be very easy to fix because, and so this is like not, yeah, so this is create, let's get crank, that's not the problem, right? It's this guy. I'm holding this control, is it the alt button? No, control button. So, oh, okay. So this is create base camera. And so now we just did exactly what I was talking about. We lost our gold star because render service, st render service should also be instead of, oh, create renderer, get renderer by ID, render renderer. Yeah, so that actually makes total sense. So something is still broken. And I love you too, Rhett. So that was in our app. So our overall app is broken, which makes sense. And it's so easy to fix it at this point. Create base camera. So the gold star is in fact lost because as we went through, we were like, oh man, this doesn't make sense. Let's go ahead and fix it. You can't, the purpose of the gold star, the little pat on the back, the little endorphin that you get, is to make you better. And if it makes you skip getting better because you want the gold star, then there's no purpose to the gold star. If that makes sense to you. Like, I could have easily just sort of ignored it. I could have been like, oh, that didn't, denied it. I deny that renaming that's a better idea. I could have even made excuses for myself, but there was no reason to. Getting a artificial good feeling by denying what appears to be reality in front of you is just not a good way to be. Anyway, so that's 33 minutes. I know I didn't do a whole lot of coding. We did move this forward. I did a lot more still sort of philosophizing and thinking about sort of concepts in just existing and sort of becoming more of a crafting developer. I will say that craftsmanship was probably the biggest thing in my generation of Americans, right? In the Gen X Americans, I think the thing that we prize more than anything else is craftsmanship, being very, very good at your craft. And that leads to all kinds of problems, for sure. Like you don't want to be becoming a better craftsman on the clock. Becoming a better craftsman is something that you do on your own time. Trying to become a better craftsman on the clock is just not a great way of, like, at work it's good if you can just build cool stuff, like, well, not experiment with new sort of things that you've thought of in your head or that you've read about or something, so, and I don't see that used to be a huge problem. I do not see that. I have not run into that problem with developers saying, oh, I read about this new sort of thing and I want to try it out in this new story that I have. And it's just like, dude, no, you need to try that shit out on your own stuff. And then once you've established that it's good, then try it out at work. But anyways, yeah, so that's mostly what I did in this video. But we did move it forward. We did create the, the next obvious to like this path that's in front of us of creating. I can't even remember. I keep getting confused on whether I'm doing scenes or, yeah. So filling out this scene and filling out these two scene things, and then using them appropriately is the next big step. So because basically in the renderer service right now, no, yeah, in the renderer service right now, I believe when we go, man, see that is, I'm so glad, right? Like I've said, no, this is not the right thing, and it shouldn't be the right thing. And then I come over here and it's like, okay, this is the right thing, but I don't want to be doing that here. I want to be doing something along the lines of that here. And I don't know what all the steps are, right? Like we could go back and watch the videos and figure out what all the steps are, or try to write it down and all that, but I don't know what they are, but I know that the next step is basically to copy this over there, or yeah, to copy this down here, change everything to scenes, and then start filling things out. And then when I get to each step, like when I say st scene service create base scene, then I'll go over to the base scene and I'll see it doesn't look like I need anything, because a base scene looks like it's just empty with some meshes, and then with a meshes folder, and then we'll also add an actual scene, ThreeJS scene, optional ThreeJS scene object, and then and see right now I'm like, oh, okay, that's actually the next thing to do is go in to here and into the interfaces and go to the scene and add a thing. But so anyways, like we're still at the point where the path is not well defined, where we kind of figure out as we go, but I feel really good that as we're going, we'll be able to figure out we aren't going to hit any dead ends, which I think when we did camera was not the case. Like when we did camera, it was like, oh man, I hope I don't paint myself into a corner here and all that. So so hopefully like this scene from here on out, we don't have any more like hiccups, like having to rename everything in camera, having to rename a function in camera. Hopefully everything just kind of flows, and if that's the case, then probably the very next thing will be meshes, and then there'll be like a get base meshes, and maybe that will go completely without any hitches. And if that is the case, then we'll do geometries next. And then if that is the case, if that goes good, then we'll consider doing viz. But if we don't do viz, then we'll be done. And we have gotten really good at doing those paths, knowing exactly what we could do. We could document everything ahead of time and say, these are the steps. These are the steps we're going to go through to do this. But there's no point, because we'll never have to do it again. Well, we will have to do it again in the future for lights. And when lights happens, hopefully that it doesn't end up, hopefully like, so we'll have a lot more experience, and we'll have like all kinds of cool different things, and all kinds of stuff when we finally bring lights into things. And then when we go and bring lights into things, that process may find little issues that need to, or it might just go smooth, and it'll be very obvious. Like we'll be like, oh, we're copying the way we do meshes, but for lights, and we'll be able to just do things, and everything will just work. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.